An outlier is a value that's considered to be unusually large or unusually small compared to the rest of the values in a sample. So how do we decide how large a value can be before we call it an outlier? Or how small can a value be before we'd call it an outlier? We do this by calculating a theoretical upper limit called the upper fence and a theoretical lower limit called the lower fence. To do this, we need to first find the interquartile range. Recall that the interquartile range is the difference between the third quartile and the first quartile. So the stats for this set of numbers which form a stem plot have already been done, and we can see we've got our minimum, our first quartile, median, third quartile and max. So the interquartile range again is the difference between Q3 and Q1. In this case that's 14.5. So what we do now is we calculate our upper and lower fence. So the upper fence is Q3, or 36.5, plus 1.5 times 14.5. And that gives us 58.25. Make sure you do the brackets first and do the multiplication before you add to the third quartile. Likewise, we find the lower fence by taking 1.5 interquartile ranges away from Q1. And then we look at those values and say, right, the upper fence is 58.25, so that's the largest value that's acceptable. When we look at our stem plot, we see we've got a value of 59, so that would be considered an outlier. We should then write that since 59 is greater than 58.25, or the upper fence, it must be an outlier. We also check the lower fence, and looking at the smallest value here, we have 18 as our smallest value over here, and since our lower fence is 0.25, well, we're well above that, so that 18 is not going to be an outlier.